Good evening, dear viewers watching RTD's English News Edition. Coming up, the headlines. The MENFAP has wrapped up the 2019-2020 school championship season for the middle and secondary schools. In the United States, Americans go to the polls to elect their 46th president. Thank you for joining us in our newsroom. According to a press release issued this afternoon by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the government of the Republic of Djibouti learned with sadness and dismay the death of 32 civilians in Ethiopia in an inter-community conflict. The statement says that Djibouti extends its deepest condolences to the families of the victims, the government, and the Ethiopian people as a whole. End of statement. The Minister of the Interior, Mr. Moumin Ahmed Sheikh, received yesterday morning in his office the new resident representative of the WFP in Djibouti, Mrs. Marie Njoroge. This courtesy visit is part of a movement of contact between the new representative and the members of the government. The minister also took this opportunity to congratulate the WFP, which was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize 2020 for its efforts to fight hunger in the world. The two parties discussed at length on their effective partnership in support of vulnerable population in Djibouti, and following their meeting, the Minister of Interior and the new representative WFP agreed to raise the level of their bilateral collaboration to accelerate assistance efforts and support for vulnerable population in Djibouti. As for the Minister of Transport, Musa Mohammed Ahmed has also received a new representative of WFP in Djibouti, Marie Njoroge, in his office. This visit is part of the new WFP representative's contact with the members of the government. During the meeting, the Minister of Transport and his host discussed the strengthening of bilateral relations between his department and WFP. For her part, Marie Njoroge thanked the Minister for their warm welcome. And this morning, the Court of Auditors held a swearing-in ceremony for public accountants in its premises located in the city center. The ceremony, presided over by the first president of the Court of Auditors, Mrs. Ismahan Mahmoud Ibrahim, whose objective was to judge the accounts of public accountants. Also in attendance were the mediator of the Republic, Dr. Qasim Isaq, the Secretary General of the Ministry of Budget, Mr. Simon Mibretu, Technical Advisor of the Ministry of Budget, the Inspector General of the Finance, the Secretary General of the Court of Auditors, Attorney General at the Court of Auditors, Mrs. Madiba Ismail Aoulet, and other participants. This service is part of the relationship that the law has established between the financial court and public accountants. It is a legal obligation that the public accountant has to fulfill as soon as he is appointed to this exceptional function, which gives the recipient the exclusive possibility of handling public funds. The President of the Court of Auditors indicated in her speech at the swearing-in ceremony that the recent appointment of public accountants was a clear message to the public authorities with regard to observing the rights of citizens and to receive accounts and use public resources. The Ministry of Health through the Djibouti Institute of Public Health launched a large-scale space spraying campaign in the public districts of the capital, and that will continue for 1 month. The objective of this campaign is to reduce the proliferation of mosquitoes, the main factor in the transmission of malaria, and act simultaneously on flies and insects responsible for diarrheal infections while destroying breeding grounds. This campaign will allow the population of neighborhoods in the three communes of the Djiboutian capital to adopt appropriate precautionary measures and good hygiene practices to prevent the risk of epidemics. Teams of entomology and hygiene agents are at work using the process of spreading a response both stagnant water and septic tanks full of insect solvents, but also activities to identify species responsible for malaria in the Republic of Djibouti. At the same time, the Minister of Health, Mohamed Madiriye, handed over to officials of the Institute of Public Health the keys of new vehicles and a lot of equipment for fumigation against mosquitoes. As part of the School Championship of Middle and Secondary Education, the Sports Complex King Fahad hosted the closing ceremony of the 2019-2020 School Championship season. More than 15 schools of middle and secondary education had competed in the categories of girls and boys in a series of school sports disciplines. As for the men's soccer teams, they played the last rounds of the final. It should be noted that this year, the 2019-2020 School Sports Championship was interrupted when the schools were closed due to the lockdown resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. In the end, the best teams from the various middle and high schools fought a bitter battle, a collective sports match such as handball, basketball and football. The Director General of the Education, Mr. Abdi Dirire Gire, the head of the Department of Sports and School Culture, Mr. Mustafa Hassan Roble, and many heads of schools took part in this closing ceremony of the School Championship of Middle and Secondary Education. Finally, the ceremony ended with the presentation of trophies to the different categories of winning teams of the School Championship of Middle and Secondary Education. News from around the world. Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara has in 78 was elected of a third term on the river score of 27% of the vote the first round after the opposition boycotted the poll, according to the results announced by the Independent Electoral Commission on the night of Monday, November 2 to Tuesday, November 3. It is now up to the Constitutional Council to validate the results and to proclaim the winner after considering any appeals from candidates. Alassane Ouattara, 78 years old, obtained more than 90% of the votes in most of the constitutions. According to the scores announced by the IESC, the independent candidate Kwadiko Nanpertin came second with 1.99% of the votes, as for 64,000 votes. In the United States, Americans go to the polls to elect their 46th president. After several months of campaigning, the presidential election is officially launched. Nearly 250 million Americans are getting ready to go to the polls to elect the 46th president of the United States. The 5 voters of Dixville Notch, a hamlet of 12 inhabitants in the northern east United States, symbolically launched the U.S. presidential election Tuesday at midnight. They voted unanimously for the favorite of the polls, Democrat Joe Biden. This village lost in the forests of the New Hampshire perpetuates a tradition established since 1960, which is earned in the title of first in the nation. A total of more than 250 million Americans go to the polls Tuesday to choose who between Donald Trump and Joe Biden will be for the 60th President of the United States of America. The 77-year-old former Vice President Joe Biden hopes to finally get the keys to the White House on his third attempt. Opposite him, outgoing Republican President Donald Trump, 74, promises to cause another surprise as he did in 2016. Hurricane ETA is moving to Category 4 North and Central America. On alert, the powerful Hurricane ETA strengthened on Monday over the warm waters of the Caribbean Sea, moving to Category 4. And is slowly approaching putting North and Central America on alert. ETA moves it to Category 4 with maximum winds between 2010 and 2049 kilometers per hour, announced the NCSC, the American Hurricane Monitoring Center. Nicaragua, where ETA is expected to make landfall Tuesday, is on alert, as are neighboring El Salvador and Honduras, which are expecting heavy rains. The NHC predicts catastrophic winds, flash floods and landslides in these 3 North and Central American countries. Sports Championship League, Real Madrid versus Inter Milan. Big day in Madrid for Champions League evening. 3 times victorious over the last 5 edition. Real Madrid has only one goal this season to raise the Champions League on once again after a completely failed start to the campaign with a defeat at home against Shakhtar Donetsk and a draw at the Borussia. The double confrontation against Inter Milan, the other big name in the group, appears as a first final in this season. Real Madrid and Inter are going to have a tough battle. Both teams will be able to count on their coaches to lead the troops. Antonio Conte and Zinedine Zidane have shared the same match sheets for 5 seasons on the Piedmont side. And that is it, the RTD Evening News for this Tuesday. Thanks for watching us and have a great evening.